Hello, Radio Land. Welcome to celebrating Black History 365 days a year. We're glad that you tuned in with us tonight as we put the spotlight on this wonderful American, great lady, queen, I call her, in the movie industry and in production of plays on stage. And that title, I believe, should go to the great woman we know as Cicely Tyson. And then we will take issue with housing, the housing crisis here in America. As we know, so many people are trying to get their housing matters back on track after what we call 10 years of disaster around that period in 2008, where so many people had suffered from this dreadful disease, I should call, and that is foreclosure. So many people were in foreclosure. But we are happy tonight to have a special guest who has some wonderful credentials, who will address some of the issues surrounding housing. And that is my great friend who I had the pleasure of being on her show on a podcast about a couple of months ago, and that is Dr. Marsha K. Abrams. She serves as the chancellor of King Service University. She is the director of human resources and the administration at my King Service. She is also an independent contractor. But the biggest qualification she has now, traveling the country in her bid to become the first Black woman to be the president of the United States, Brother Earl. She's running in 2020. Can you believe it? In 2020. But before she calls in at 8:30, and I'm praying that she will call in, as she has indicated to me, she's traveling right now around the world. I believe she's in the United States right now and had been out of the country for a minute, but should be calling at 8:30. But I want to feature the queen of movies and stage. We all have heard of her, Cicely Tyson. Cicely Tyson is an amazing and award-winning woman in film, television, and stage. She is notable for her roles in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. She's also played in The Help and Broadway's The Trip to Bountiful, and among others. Now, Cicely Tyson was born in New York City on December the 19th, but the year she won't indicate to anyone her birth year, although some believe her birth year to be 1933, but we believe also some that is 1924, but she keeps us guessing because when you look at her picture now, and she is about 90 years old, Earl, she really looks good. Beautiful skin, as we know it. She has won accolades and awards for her performance on TV, stage, and in film, with credits including Sounder. Ooh, I just can't get enough of Sounder. I see it so often, each time on my television screen. What a great movie that was. And she's also played, as you know, the mother of Kunta Kinte in Roots. And of course, we know that she has played a marvelous job as in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. And she's played in The Oldest Living Confederate Widow, Tells All, and The Help. Tyson has won 3 Emmy Awards and a Tony Award, among other honors, over the course of her acting career. She was inducted into the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame in 1977. And as far as I'm concerned, she should be inducted into the Filmmakers Hall of Fame, period, in the United States and around the world. She was born and grew up, rather, in Harlem, New York. And at the age of 18, she walked away from a typing job and she began modeling. Tyson was then drawn to acting. Though she had not been permitted to go to plays or movies as a child, when she got her first acting job, her religious mother, feeling that Tyson was choosing a sinful path, kicked her out of the house. Yes, her mother kicked her out of the house. In movies, TV, and theater, despite her mother's initial disapproval, the two didn't speak for 2 years before reconciling, thank God. And Tyson found success as an actress, appearing on stage in movies and on TV. In 1963, Tyson became the first African-American star of a TV drama in the series East Side, West Side, playing the role of Secretary Jane Foster. She went on to be nominated for an Academy Award for the 1972 Sounder. And she also portrayed notable roles on television, including, again, like I said, Kunta Kinte's mother in the adaptation of Alex Haley, who I had the pleasure of meeting and hearing him speak before he passed in Roots when I was in college. Had the blessing of traveling to Knoxville, Tennessee, where many of his ancestors left the plantation in the South. That's so true. And they settled in Tennessee. And he did some schooling, I believe, in Knoxville College. But he came back to the Southern Regional NAACP convention. And I had the pleasure again of hearing him speak so eloquently about the part that Kunta Kinte played as he was being whipped. And they wanted him to say Toby. And truly, Alex Haley said that he, I believe it was Lou Gossett playing that part, truly was crying because that was just such a pivotal moment in that movie. And that's the movie, again, that she played in at that time. Moving to Broadway in 1983, Tyson was the lead in the play The Corn is Green, played set in Welch mining town. And in 1994, the actress nabbed her third Emmy in a supportive role as the housemaid to Castellan in the CBS miniseries television adaptation of The Oldest Living Confederate Widow Tells It All. In her personal life, though the years, Tyson has kept much of her personal life, including her birth year, under wraps. However, what we know is that Tyson was married to Miles Davis. She was married to Miles Davis for 7 years in the 1980s and has no children. As you know, Miles Davis has spent much of his time in Chicago. I remember in 1989 seeing Miles Davis' limo riding through the west side of Chicago, and that is so true. But anyway, she co-founded the Dance Theater of Harlem after Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. And when a school board in East Orange, New Jersey wanted to name the performing school after her, she only agreed to accept her if she could participate in school activities in addition to attending meetings and events. Tyson has even taught a master school or a master class at the school. Now, some of her awards were: Tyson received numerous acting awards and nominations and became a member of the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame, as I said earlier, in 1977. She has also been honored by the Congress of Racial Equality and by the National Council of Negro Women. And in 2010, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People presented Tyson with its 95th Spingarn Medal, which is the highest honor, I believe, you can receive with the NAACP, an award given to African Americans who have reached outstanding levels of achievement. Hats off again to Cicely Tyson. And in 2015, Tyson was nominated for an Emmy for her guest starring role in ABC's How to Get Away with Murder, and was a recipient of the Kennedy Center Honors. I just can't watch that show, but I'm glad she played in it, Earl, because of the fact I don't like that title. How can you get away with murder? I got issues with murder, period, because two people very dear to me were murdered. And of course, no one really has come to justice. One of them, maybe, but I doubt if he was the only one in this regard that acted alone. And I'm talking about James Earl Ray. The following year, she was honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank God that Barack Obama did that right and that she received an award. Now, what I want to do is share some of the wonderful movies that we had a pleasure of watching. See if you can remember some of them when it came to Sister Tyson. But before I do that, let me share some last minute things before we get closer and closer to our guests calling in at 8:30. Tyson was discovered by a photographer for Ebony magazine and became a popular fashion model. Her first acting role was on NBC series Frontiers of Faith in 1951. Tyson got her first play role in 1950 and her first film role in the Carib Gold in 1956. But she went on to do more television work, such as the celebrated series East Side, West Side, and the soap opera. She played even in The Guiding Light. I told you, she's the queen of TV. She's done just about everything. Just an amazing woman. In 1972, again, she did receive, as I said to you earlier, and I'm repeating this just to make sure we got it, she was nominated for her Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in the critically acclaimed Sounder. And I just know for a fact, maybe she'll do one more great movie. She deserves an Academy Award as far as I'm concerned because of her hard work. In 1974, she won Emmy Award for her autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. And of course, she did play in the movie Roots, and she played Coretta Scott King, the movie King, the Marva Collins story. As you know, she did some great things here on the west side of Chicago or west of the city. And of course, No One Would Listen was a great movie that she did as well. 1982, she was awarded the Women in Film Crystal Award for Outstanding Women. In 1991, she appeared in Fried Green Tomatoes as Sipsy. And in 1994, we can talk all day about Sister Tyson. What a wonderful person. She played in television series as well, Sweet Justice. Tyson portrayed a civil rights activist attorney named Carrie Grace Battle, a character she shaped by reportedly consulting with the noted Washington, D.C. civil rights criminal defense lawyer, Dovey Johnson Roundtree. And let's see if you can think of or know of any of these movies that she's played in. And I'm going to go all the way back. I had some notes here as we talked about 1956 and 1958. She also played in The Odds Against Tomorrow. 1959 started a long time ago, The Last Angry Man. And of course, I mentioned Sounder. 1972. 1978, A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich. And she played the role of Sweets. In 1981, she played in the movie Bustin' Loose. And she was known as Vivian Perry in that movie. Yes. 1997, she played the role of Stephanie St. Clair in the movie Hoodlums. Let me turn over a page because we're going to keep on going here. And in 1974, Free to Be You and Me, she played herself. And in 1978, one of my greatest movies of all times that I love to see her play, The Woman Called Moses. As you know, she led single-handedly on her own through the Underground Railroad. She led 300 slaves to freedom, did not lose not one of them. I know for a fact God is real, and he worked with this woman called Harriet Ross Tubman. What a beautiful person. 1981, we saw this movie. I did. The Marva Collins story, how this woman took children on the West Side and shaped their minds. And we know a mind is a pearl. And she was able to let them know that their minds were pearl. And Marva Collins will always be remembered. And we're glad that Sister Tyson played Marva Collins and received an Image Award for her outstanding actress role in that mini series. And as I keep on turning the page, because we got time to talk about Harriet, or I should say, the woman called Moses, as we know as Cicely Tyson. 1986, she played the Samaritan, the Mitch Snyder story. And in that role, she was Muriel. She received another Earl, another one to be. She received an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actress. Again, I'm going on down the line. I'm going to have to skip a few of these movies. Let's go to 1994. The oldest living Confederate widow tells it all. Like I said, she played the role of Caskrelia Marsden, the family house slave and maid, and won a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Supportive Actress for a miniseries. She was nominated. She was nominated again for the Screen Actors Guild Award. We're going big time now, y'all. She was an outstanding performance by a female actor in the miniseries of this movie. And of course, Sweet Justice. She played Carrie Grace. She's nominated again for a Primetime Emmy Award, Outstanding Lead Actress Award for this drama series. And in 1996, she played the role of Jordan Roosevelt on the road to Galveston and received another NAACP Image Award. This woman keeps me fired up, I tell you. Let me try to get closer to our time as we move toward 2005. She played in, I believe, The Diary of a Mad Black Woman. I remember that role of watching her on the set, and she was Myrtle. Aunt Myrtle, everyone loved her there in the movie. She set them straight. And she played another one in Tyler's movie, 2006, Medea's Family Reunion. She played that a name again, Myrtle. What a wonderful lady. And in Idlewild, 2006, she was Mother Hopkins in Idlewild. And Rwanda Rising, 2007, she was Mother Hopkins. Okay? And Up from the Bottoms, The Search for the American Dream, 2009. She narrated. She's even good at narrating. Look at that. And in 2011, she played in the movie The Help. She was Constantine Bates. And so the list goes on and on as we conclude with our good friend, as we know, Cicely Tyson. There is no death because she's still alive and well, living in the state of New York. At this time, I want to call to questioning some issues regarding housing, and our guest should be calling in shortly, but I want to set the stage. And you know I can keep on talking, and I will until my producer says that's it. That's in fact, if I don't get a call-in guest tonight, I'm going to be the guest, but I want to give other Americans an opportunity. I often preach a sermon every year, and I have. On the West Side, I just finished a sermon back down memory lane. But I want to take us back down memory lane as we talk about housing and race in Chicago. We've talked about the crime. We've talked about other issues around that, police brutality and this and that and the other. But I want to talk about housing and race because I've heard so many Chicagoans. I'm a country boy from Mississippi, and I've heard about Black people living in certain pockets on the South Side and West Sides of Chicago. And I had to find out for myself when I did some research because I love scholarly articles and reading them and things of that nature. So it took me back, Earl, and wanted to be to Lorraine Hansberry, A Raising in the Sun. Watch this, who is from Chicago. chronicles the efforts of an African-American family, listen to me, audience, to move out of the ghetto to a better neighborhood. It draws upon a complicated and difficult part of Chicago's history. I have to tell it like it is. In her play is set sometime between 1945 and 1959, and it illustrates many of the conflicts that surrounded the questions of race and housing during this period in Chicago. And I need to put a pin there because yesterday on 60 Minutes, I saw Oprah Winfrey, who we will feature in the upcoming weeks, on 60 Minutes. And now they have a museum that they have built in Montgomery, Alabama, where they are going to honor all of the 4,000 people. And there are an additional 2,000 more people who have been lynched in this country. And some of them were lynched because they wanted to move out of one neighborhood to another. Check the record. And 4,000 men names are hanging up in the museum in Montgomery that will be opening up in a couple of weeks. And I thank God I did not know that they have a museum to honor 4,000 Americans who were lynched in this country. And Oprah has gotten some criticism because she showed pictures of black men and women and children, not just Emmett Till, who were lynched in this country. From far back to the early 1900s or the late 1800s, after slavery. After slavery, we still endured more hardship when it should have been over. After slavery, it should have been over. But it lasted until even when I was in high school, I knew someone who was personally lynched. But I got to get back on my script. Although less well than the Great Migration. The Great Migration started around 1910 when my own ancestors, my aunt, who died at 92 years old, left Mississippi and came to Chicago and lived on Harrison on the west side. Large numbers of African Americans first moved from the South to Chicago. Also from 1940 to 1960, actually saw more African Americans arrive in the city owing to such factors as availability, looking for jobs. But the housing market in Chicago was tight even before the end of World War II, because you couldn't live anywhere, everywhere, all over Chicago. You had to live in certain pockets. Let me run it down to you. African Americans were primarily limited to an area of Chicago, listen to me, as the Black Belt. And every city in America, including Birmingham, by the way, because bombs went off in Birmingham. That was the nickname for Birmingham. The most notable one was where those 4 little girls were bombed while they were going upstairs, leaving the bathroom, doing Sunday school. Birmingham, the bomb went off. But this is where they lived in Chi-Town. They were located between 12th and 79th Streets and Wentworth and Cottage Grove. Approximately 60,000 blacks had moved from the South to Chicago in 4 years, 1940 to 44, 60,000 in search of jobs. In an effort to keep the newly arriving African Americans out of their neighborhoods, whites within a residential block form restrictive covenants, which simply means they legally binding contracts that specified a house's owner could not rent or sell to black people in Chicago. Now, there were black preachers that were against Dr. King for coming to Chicago. Now, I ain't got no problem with you being against him, perhaps. But what were you doing before he got here? What were they doing? Blacks should be allowed to move anywhere, as far as I'm concerned. So if the black preachers weren't doing anything before he came, and when he came, they turned on him, that's going to be another show. But we're going to deal with this issue. When overcrowding continued into the post-war years, as more blacks moved north to Chicago, many blacks would often live in one apartment. Yes, we're talking 9, 10 deep, Earl, and wanted to be living in one apartment, if not more. Just like the Hispanics are doing today, we were doing it back then. Now, such overcrowding, while difficult in itself, also contributed to generally poor housing conditions for black families. They were dealing with rats and roaches crawling all over them. Think about it. Everybody couldn't sleep in a bed when they got here. So what's crawling over them at night? Those chinches, as my pastor, God bless his soul, is going on in. He said they had to move to Argyle Gardens, which was a beautiful apartment. It still is, but they had to move out there. Because there were so many people living in this one area, the demand far exceeded supply and landlords. So I had to give us a bit of history about the situation, and I come back to it, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can before our guest should call in. And I'll come back to it if she does not. But I want to give you some statistics and share with you again that we know that Chicago is the third largest urban pocket in the country. The black population, most notably, result in a huge influx of African Americans who both moved here, migrating to the north. Now, it has a population of 1 million blacks live in Chicago, 1,608,877. That's a large number of black people in a metropolitan area. That's why Chicago was chosen also by Martin Luther King because of that. And many of the people who were on his staff knew about or knew people in the city of Chicago as well. And they felt more comfortable moving here versus Philadelphia. They looked at Philadelphia, they looked at other areas, and housing, blacks were not living where they wanted to go. And it was a civil rights issue. Now, as far as him coming here or not, that's another show, like I said. We got to deal with that. Families in poverty. The bad news is 1/4 of black Americans live in poverty in Chicago. That's too high, Earl. 25%. Of the percentage employed, half of us got jobs, but the metropolitan area of the rest of us, 61% of us got jobs. The other bad news, we got 39% of black people not in the labor force. They're not doing jack. They're not doing anything. They might be doing some other things, as you call, under the table, if you want to call it that, but they are not doing anything as far as the labor force is concerned. But now the other areas, the metropolitan areas, the numbers tend to be pretty much parallel. But those are the other races. Homeowners. Only 40% of us own homes in the metropolitan area, whereas more than 60% in the metropolitan area own homes. So we've got to increase in that area. And only 25% of us are married as black people, whereas almost half of us are married in the metropolitan area. Here's the other bad news. Very, very few, and we're talking 9%, 10% have health care, no health coverage. In the metropolitan area, that number is a little higher. So we're going to come back to that. The majority of black people moved to the city's south side, where these major industries were located. That's why they came to the south side. Major industries on the south side. Chicago's Black Belt consisted of 30-block long stretch of neighborhoods on the south side and dilapidated housing, much like Harlem, New York. So the south side is similar to Harlem, New York in that regard. Blacks were overcrowded in apartment buildings that lacked plumbing, healthy, sanitary conditions. Today, it is evident that African American populations outgrew the original 30 block barrier. Now, the entire South Side is majority black. And that to me spells nothing but segregation, which not that bad, except for this. We don't have a lot of things on the South Side, and on the North Side, they seem to have a lot more. So you got to think about that. It's okay if you want the whole black side to be segregated, if it is what it is, but what's happening as far as the economic piece, that's an issue. So there's a significant number of black populations on the west side of the city, and Chicago followed the same patterns as many other African American cities with white flight followed, as we see here, between 2000 and 2010, while the other Chicago region gained black population at a modest rate of 4%. And the latest census also revealed the effort of reverse migration back to the South, usually to the major employment centers. As we know, a lot of blacks have moved to Atlanta. A lot of them are moving back to Dallas. I saw that with my own eyes. I came home. I'm from the South, Mississippi, and I went to Dallas to visit my sons. And lo and behold, it looked like my whole town, Earl, came to the house where I was at because they had heard I was in town. And my friend, my brother, Brother Johnson, stayed there and be barbecued. And many people came back to his home, and it was a great time. So I felt like I was back in Mississippi, which was great. So many of the African Americans in the southern suburbs relocated from the adjacent South, south of Chicago, while many black migrants favored nearby western suburbs. This is good information. 2010, the census revealed that the city of Chicago itself lost 17% of its black population between 2000 and 2010, while the entire Chicago region gained black population at a modest rate of 4%. So we're waiting for the guest to call. I'll go ahead and do like I did one week, and I had to call. Let's see if I can get her this way, Earl. If not, I'm going to keep on going to see if I can get her. But anyway, as we continue, the black population estimated base in April 4th, 2010, it states that there were 2,895,000, the population in the city of Chicago. Yes, is this Marsha? Reverend Dr. Marsha? You're going to give me a call? Okay, what number do you have the number? Yes, I can give you the number. We're waiting for your call. Yes. When you give me your number, I'm like the FBI, Dr. Abrams. When you give me a number, I'll stay on you. I have to do that to someone else, but I know you're busy as well. But my producer, we're ready to give you the number if you don't have it, so you can call us. 708-223-8953. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, when you call, I'll push the button. Okay. 708 223 8953. Okay. That is the number, is basically 708-223-8953. And as soon as you call it, he'll grab it, and then I'll go ahead and push on. Okay, go ahead and call it. Thank you. So yes, we're blessed to have again Dr. Marsha K. Abrams. And again, she is a candidate for the presidency of the United States, and she is running in 2020. But I brought her on tonight to specifically address issues when it comes to housing. And we want to talk about that, not just a Chicago issue, but an issue around the country. So we're waiting a few seconds for her to call in. Okay. All right. Yes. We are waiting and waiting. Okay. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes,
we're glad to
I
have you
am.
tonight.
God bless you.
Okay.
God bless you.
God bless you. We wanted to bring you on tonight because I was on your show, as I indicated earlier, a couple of months ago or so, and we were talking about housing. And I wanted to hear some of your wonderful housing solutions. And I did tell them, amongst your other great credentials, you are a candidate or will be a candidate, whichever, for the presidency of the United States in 2020. And I'm sure
Yes.
housing and all of the issues will come up in this country, but I wanted you to address the housing issues at this time. And if you could do that in about 10 or 15 minutes, I'd love to hear you now.
All right.
Yes.
Do you have any questions to ask me?
Well, I wanted to just basically hear from you. What were some of the solutions that you have when it comes to the housing issues in our country, whether they plague one race or the other? As you indicated, this is an issue around the country when it comes to subline loans and things of that nature. How do you feel about that? Can you share with us about that, please?
Well, the law that I would be implementing or putting in place, a petition, would be that all American citizens will have home. And
okay.
It's not an impossible task.
Yes.
When this law is passed and so forth,
We're having trouble hearing you, doctor. Go ahead. Try that again. We're having trouble hearing you.
The individual would be able to access housing in their own name. And it is not an impossible task, you know.
Okay.
It's just my thing is there's too many people that are in the plagued by lack of housing and or foreclosure and things like that.
Okay.
And with the petition that I have, that wouldn't affect the people anymore. The banks will forgive the people, and they will also allow them to continue to live in their home, just like if they were renters or something like that. But they would not be forced out of their home by no means whatsoever. New homes will be able to be built, and they would get access to funding for, you know, their own house.
Okay.
And then that would last family for generations, generations, and generations and generations to come. So no one will ever be pushed out of their home or forced out by the lack of ability to pay because of some crisis that occurred, whether it's a financial crisis due to one of the partners, husband or wife, or the two individuals that had a income coming in.
Okay.
One now can no longer pay, and so now they can't make their mortgage payments, and they've been paying for 15 years, and now all of a sudden the bank is going to take their home back. That will not happen under the program that I have written out and will implement.
Tell me how would that be?
So people will be able to stay in their homes.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
How would that be different as far as you're doing it? What will be the deciding factor there? What will make the difference?
Well, what we have right now is currently the bank can come in and the judge will rule for the bank, which is that's what their position is. The judge is to rule for the bank.
Okay.
It's not for the people who own the home.
Correct.
So the position now, the judge now will rule for the people. I mean, America is we the people, for the people, by the people, of
right
the
on.
people.
Right
so
on.
Why are the people being put out of their own home? What happens in a home, it's security, and it takes care of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the belonging need,
right.
The survival need, the basic needs of life. You have to have a home, family structure.
Amen.
When you take a person out of a home, everyone loses. No one wins. No one.
That's right.
The economy does not win because it affects the economy drastically. When one house is put up, you know how many people goes to work? I'll tell you how many people. The plumber goes to work. The roof and the carpenter goes to work. Every structural engineer goes to work. Mm-hmm. The people that pave the grounds, the people that do landscaping goes to work.
Right.
Lawn mowing people goes to work. There's a lot of people that goes to work. Refrigerators are built. Many appliances are built. You have the electricity that goes to the house, or you put solar panels. There are many people going to work because of that one house.
That's true. So we have a domino effect. That's true.
In every area, jobs are created because of that one house. There's no reason why that everyone in America cannot have a home. We have enough land. And so now you have a family that will stay together forever and deal with whatever situation that the family has to deal with just because of that one house. And then it stays in the family forever and generation to come. They come back and see grandma, and they come back to see great grandma, and they come back to see third and fourth and fifth generation. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I will be implementing. It has nothing to do with race, creed, or color, or anything, or culture, or tradition. It's just economical sense to have a person in a home and stay in their home without the fear of losing their home if they lose their job or someone gets sick or some accident occur or something like that. No American should be outside of a home. And if they decide that they want to live in an apartment or a condominium setting and things like that because they don't want to mow grass and things like that, that's fine.
Yes.
So that's still a home, but they will not be kicked out of their home. And whether it's a studio or a row house or a family that has a 5 family housing unit and things like that.
Great.
So that's my contention is that everyone should be in their own home and have ownership rights. What happened also, the other thing that impacts the economy, the taxes then take care of the teacher's salary, the judge's salary, the officer's salary, the fire chief's salary. So property owners are the only ones that pay taxes.
That's right.
So if you're renting, you're not paying any taxes. So all these renters and all these skyscrapers with all these other people in it, are not paying any taxes.
Right.
Only the property owner, the owner of that condominium or the skyscraper or whatever, or the owner is the only one that is responsible for paying taxes and sustainability of a community.
That's right.
So that is my contention. So if we make skyscrapers in their condominium, you have ownership to that condominium.
You surely
do. What I'm saying? So there's no excuse that we cannot do this. It's something that's doable. And having a vehicle also to get to work, or they stay at home and become entrepreneurs and learn how to, get a line and be a creator of their own ideas and sell and market that stuff.
Right.
Give them strategies and that. And that's another area of bringing more income into American household.
Great. How would they be able to contact you, Dr. Abrams, if someone is interested in your knowledge and your help and that kind of thing?
Well, I have a very small website. It's drabrams4president.com. There's hyphens between each of those characters. The words Dr. Abram -4, that's FOR -president.com.
Great.
So
great.
www.
Great.
Dr. Abrams.
Yes. My final question to you, which is a big one. What led you to want to become the president of the United States?
Well, it's a really funny story how things really evolved. I literally was going to submit a ballot for my mother, who was bedridden at the time, and two of my neighbors, we were driving because they had to witness, the signature, and so we were driving in January of 2016 to submit her ballot to the Board of Elections,
Yes.
And as we were driving, my neighbor said that they were Democrats and I'm a Republican, of course, everyone knows that. But I was, they said to me that you should run for Senate, and I thought about that, and he was basically sincerely being facetious, but I said, would anybody vote for me? And then the wife said, yes, I would, And as we drove along, and they took the petition in because I already had voted and so forth, and
Yes.
They went to vote. And I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, So then I started doing some research on how to become a senator, and I had missed the election time, or the time when you can put a petition in. It was scheduled for December 15th of the year before, 2015. And I was like, oh man, I missed it. So by that time I had shared with many, many people, and I told them that I was going to run for Senate. And by June, one of the bishops from Florida, she called my state and they told her that your candidate, if she's really ready, she can, there has been an opening. And so with that opening, they called me and I put my name in the hat for Senate. When that race started, I was a write-in candidate. In 2016 election came, and the presidential race and the Senate race, all of that was happening, and people were writing my name in for president because the Senate closed. In 2016, if the section is closed, no one can write my name in. And since I was a write-in candidate, they could not write my name in for Senate, right? To be a senator of the state. But people were writing my name in to be president of the United States, whether they were being facetious or not. But a whole lot of people were doing it, and I was getting the numbers. And the numbers was growing and things like that. So by November 3rd, I called the Senate because I have to report to the Senate, with everything that I do, right?
Yes.
And the Senate told me, the Secretary of the Senate told me what I needed to do I said, there are people voting for me as president, and I'm not, running for the office of president. What do I do? And they told me, step by step what I needed to do. So I submitted my package and my application for president of the United States for 2020. And so I've been officially a challenger for the office of the President of the United States of America since November 3rd, 2016. And it's just been an awesome, learning experience. And that is actually how everything evolved.
Very good. We are just so happy to know that. As I was researching at first about a week ago, and I realized and saw that, I said, we got to mention that on the show. And I did mention that to my producers here that you are a candidate for President of the United States for 2020. Along those lines, you have some passion about housing and the issues with that and trying to help people to stay in their houses. And again, I want to thank you for calling in, or rather, we talking tonight about your concerns, and would like to have you back soon, okay?
All right, thank you so much. God bless you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abrams, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And that was Dr. Marsha K. Abrams. She's running for President of the United States in 2020. That's exciting news. Someone that we can say on this air, Brother Earl, that are going to or have thrown their hat in the ring. That's pretty remarkable. So we're going to end tonight by letting you all know that next week we will be talking about James Weldon Johnson. And we're going to move into the field of literature. And then we will talk also about single parenting. Single parenting is not only an African-American problem, but it is a national problem. So many females, and there are some males alone that are raising the children. We need to look at the good, the bad, the ugly, and the pretty when it comes to single parenting. Not all of it is bad, but not all of it is good also. And we will do that on next week. So we'll see you then. And I wish you Godspeed. Be safe out there in America. God bless you. Wasn't that a shocker to you? I shocked.